The final thing I'd like to do is set up a production configuration for Webpack. Right now, our mode is set to development always, and we're always using the dev server. And by setting mode to development, we don't get the minification, just as one example, that we would get if mode was production. But we want to have both options. I want to be able to run with my dev server, what we have right now for npm serve, and have that be in development mode with the server. But then I still want to have my production configuration with some slight tweaks, maybe when I run npm build or run build. So to do that, I can just make, there's a couple of ways. A fancy option would be to have a common configuration file, and then a dev configuration file, and a prod configuration file, and then you can merge them together. And if you check out my long, more detailed YouTube series just on Webpack, it's a couple hours of Webpack. It's a lot more than this. I show how to do that. But in this example, we could just take our configuration and basically copy it into a second file. And this one can be like prod.config or webpack.prod.js. The name doesn't really matter. We're going to reference the name and point Webpack to it. But I'm going to copy and paste what I had from my original config into here. But now I'm going to say, all right, mode is production to start. And we could just start with this. And by setting mode to be production, if I stop this server here and I go to my package.json, and when I run this build script, if I point Webpack using --config to that file I just made, webpack.prod.js, now it will use this configuration file. So by default, it will look for one called webpack.config.js, but I can point it wherever I want using this option. So let's see if that actually works. If I do npm run build, right now, my dist folder, it does have a build in there, but this is from development mode, so it's not minified. If I do npm run build, come on, please, take a look. Now we've got our lovely production bundle. Okay, so that's the first thing that we can handle. Now we have our regular development mode, which we access by running npm serve, and then we have our production mode by using npm run build. But one common addition that you'll see all over the place is to add in a special plugin that will help us clean out the dist folder every time we build. Now, this isn't really a problem at the moment because every time I build right now, if I run it again, npm run build, we just end up with a bundle.js file every time, right? There was a bundle.js, now there's just bundle.js, and it's been updated. If I change my code in some way, let's change what we console.log here from index file with a bunch more exclamation points. I npm run build. We wait a moment. And we still just have this one bundle file. But what is common is to actually introduce some form of a hash into the file name. I'll show you one way of doing that, and I'm actually going to not leave this in, but I can do something like this: content hash .bundle.js. And this will be a hash. You'll just see what happens when I run npm run build. That Webpack automatically adds in to the file name. I think it's lowercase h, unfortunately. Let's try that one more time. Based on the contents of the bundle file. And there we go. Can you see this file name here? Nasty long hash name .bundle.js. The reason that people do that is that it helps the browser recognize that things have changed, that it's a different file. It's not going to run into problems with caching. It's a common solution. You might also see chunk hash. I believe the old way of doing this that's deprecated is just saying hash. There's also full hash. There's a lot to go into adding hashes into a file name in Webpack, but we're not going to go into it. But I show this to you because now every time if I change something in one of my files, I delete an exclamation point, I rebuild, I'm going to end up with a totally new file in my dist directory, a new bundle, and it just keeps going and going. So this is where the clean plugin for Webpack comes in. We need to install it, and all that we do is we tell Webpack to use this plugin called Clean Webpack Plugin. It will automatically empty out this folder every time it rebuilds instead of just adding on. So we'll go ahead and install it. Clean webpack-plugin npm install --save dev clean webpack plugin. And there's a ton of different plugins for Webpack. This is probably the most commonly used, but there's lots of things that we could go in and add on. Okay, so now we go into our production config, and we add in a plugin section. I don't think, do we have any already? No, we do not. And inside of this array, we simply add new clean Webpack plugin, but of course, we're going to have to require it first. So we do it up top here, and then in plugins, new clean Webpack plugin. All right, so now watch this dist directory. I'm going to run npm run build again, and it should be cleaned out every time I build. And there we go. We just have our most recent bundle in there. Now, I am going to undo this content hash because it's just going to be annoying for anybody who's downloading this code trying to run it. Not to mention the fact that our index.html has no idea about that hash. And there's ways of getting Webpack to build the index for us, but we're not doing that. But anyway, it is working. Now we'll just always have a file called bundle.js, but maybe there's some other stuff that gets added in there. It's all going to be removed every single time we build. And that's not even a concern when we are in dev mode, because we're using the dev server. It keeps it all in memory, remember. It doesn't actually commit the bundle to a file on disk. Okay, so we could probably rename this if we wanted to, just to be consistent. We could call this one webpack.dev.js. The only thing is, we then have to specify the config file over here. --config, when we start the server, is no longer the default that it looks for. It's webpack.dev.js. And let's make sure that works. npm run serve. There we go, localhost 8080. We see our output. Everything's working fine. We just have two different config files now, and we tell Webpack which one to use. Well, technically, we're telling Webpack dev server which one to use, and Webpack which one to use, based on the command that we're running. Okay.